Have you noticed that every one of these candidates say, Obama's weak. Putin's kicking sand in his face. When I talk to Putin, he's going to straighten out. Just looking at him, he's going to be. And then it turns out they can't handle a bunch of CNBC moderators.
Ben Carson has extended his lead over Donald Trump in some of the key polling. Donald Trump, who just last week gave the doctor a knowing wink on stage at the GOP debate, is now starting to verbally turn on his best buddy. Jeb Bush figures now that he opened the door last week, why not take the gloves off a little more and go after frenemy Marco Rubio? The candidates are rebelling against the RNC over the next debates. President Obama is getting in his verbal licks. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Stage is set. Bring up the lights. Release the hounds in this version of the political animal. He is the former spokesman for President George W. Bush, author of The War on Millennials, and senior project manager at Hathaway Strategies, Pete Seat, and the former managing director for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, now founder and CEO of the New Blue Interactive, Taryn Rosenkranz. I want to thank you both for being here. Let us then loose the animals. We have 90 days to Iowa, 1 year out from the election itself. And Pete, the president is now involved in taking shots at the Republicans. Look, let's be honest. From anyone on the right, you've got to be a little bit concerned when right now the Republican candidates are more worried about debate moderators than they are worried about the issues themselves. Come on, Pete, this is clown car-ish almost.
Well, can I applaud you first and foremost for the Ghostbusters reference? That goes a long way in my book.
Attaboy.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, we're debating debates now. We're talking about process. We're not putting out a forward-looking vision for this country. And, you've got Donald Trump. You talked about going after Carson. One of the first rules in politics is you punch up, not punch down. And Donald Trump is either defying that well-worn playbook, or he's realized that Ben Carson has overtaken him and is the front runner of the moment. But they're so enamored of this debate that it's mind-boggling, and they need to actually prove that they can be commander-in-chief and not worry about what the temperature is in the room of the next debate.
Well, but let's go to the other side here. And Taryn, let me bring in a poll here. This is the latest Reuters Ipsos poll. Donald Trump shows that he has the trust of Republican voters. Not only that, but a head-to-head matchup with Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump and Ben Carson, we can make fun of them all we want. You can say whatever you want. But this poll says they would defeat Hillary Clinton in a straight-up election. Taryn, let's be honest. The Democrats have got to be getting shaky just a little bit because 1 year out, it still looks as if they got staying power.
Yeah, I will say I think that anyone who takes on whoever the Democratic, nominee is, we have to take as a very serious threat. I mean, this is a very, it's an open election here. This is something that we do take seriously. And all of them have their very big strengths and very big weaknesses. I will say I do think the debate process has actually exposed a lot more weaknesses than it has shown strengths, which is kind of, to my colleague's point here, right, is that none of them have really risen to the top, and they're not punching up, if you will. They're sort of just taking cheap shots at each other, and there's a lot of complaining about all sorts of different things, and you're just not seeing that leader who's emerging that we know is the real threat. So I think that's what you're seeing in these polls is still the early sort of trepidation about who the nominee is going to be and what it's going to look like a year from now.
Well, but then let's put this into the mix here. Donald Trump is now taking shots at Senator Marco Rubio. This was an interview with Bloomberg on Monday where he called his rival the one who sweats the most. Here's what he said.
I think he's a highly overrated person. I've called him a lightweight. I think he's a lightweight. I watched somebody on Joe's show this morning. He's fawning off him. He says how handsome he is, how good. I don't know. I think I'm better looking than he is. Am I better looking than him?
We'll leave that lie. Pete, here's the thing about this. You can say all you want, but here now is another poll. They said that Donald Trump is the most trusted Republican to manage the economy, deal with foreign leaders, and serve as commander-in-chief. We've got to stop here. I think the right's got to stop here and say, let's stop worrying about trying to stop Trump here. He might just be the guy, Pete.
Well, he could be. We're not going to know for several more months. And to go back to your point about, okay, Donald Trump and Ben Carson could defeat Hillary Clinton, we have to ask ourselves, what's more important? purely having a Republican in the White House or having someone who can actually do the job of commander-in-chief. And that's an important question. But with Rubio, his favorability ratings have been high all along. He ranks high on candidates or voters' second choice. Let's say they like Trump or Carson. Rubio is usually their second or third choice. And now some of those people, they're making Rubio their first choice. He's had some very strong debate performances, and that's been their strategy. His campaign and Senator Rubio's strategy from the beginning has been to kind of simmer throughout this process and peak when it comes time in January and February.
Okay, let me hit that. 45 seconds then left to you, Taryn. In your opinion, as someone who knows both sides here and strategy, whom do you think Hillary Clinton fears the most?
Well, I think that's a good question.
That's why I ask them. I get paid for the good questions.
Whatever I say is going to be held against me, right? I mean, right now, gosh, there's just no clear, oppositional threat. I think she can win against any of them.
But if you were there giving the advice, who would you fear the most?
Well, I think a long time ago, it was maybe, and by a long time ago, so several months ago, there was an article about Rubio being such a giant threat. And I do think he's very, very real, and there is a very big constituency there of which, he's the most palatable to all parts of the party. And so I think there's a real threat there.
Be very careful, too, because the LA Times today had an op-ed where they talked about the perfect ticket for the GOP. Cruz and Rubio in that order. Oh, and by the way, Pete, Goza the Gozerian is not included in any of these tickets, in case you're wondering. Pete, Seat, Taryn Rosenkranz, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you both again soon. Stay with us. The fastest 60 minutes in news, even for Ghostbusters, will continue.